Don Quixote Part I. Chapter 1, which treats of the character and pursuits of the famous gentleman. Don Quixote of La Mancha, a village of La Mancha, the name of which I have no desire to call to mind. There lived not long since one of those gentlemen that keep a lance upon a rack, an old buckler, a lean hack, and a greyhound for coursing, an olea of rather more beef than mutton, a salad on most nights, scraps on Saturdays, lentils on Fridays, and a pigeon or so extra on Sundays. Made away with 3/4 of his income. The rest of it went in a doublet of fine cloth and velvet breeches and shoes to match for holidays, while on weekdays he made a brave figure in his best homespun. He had in his house a housekeeper past 40, a niece under 20, and a lad for the field and marketplace, who used to saddle the hack as well as handle the billhook. The age of the gentleman of whom we are in search was bordering on 50. He was of a hardy habit, spare, gaunt-featured, very early riser, and a great lover of the chase. They will have it, his surname was Quixote or Quesada, for here there is some difference of opinion among the authors who write on the subject, although from reasonable conjectures it seems plain that he was called Quixote. But this matters little to our story. It will be enough not to stray a hair's breadth from the truth in the telling of it. It is, then, to be understood that this aforesaid gentleman, whenever he was at leisure, which was mostly all the year round, gave himself up to reading books of chivalry, with such ardor and avidity that he almost entirely neglected the exercise of the chase, and even the management of his property, and to such a pitch did his eagerness and infatuation go that he sold many an acre of arable land to buy books of chivalry to read, and brought home as many of them as he could get, but of all there were none he liked so well as those of the famous Feliciano de Silva's composition, for their lucidity of style and complicated conceits were as pearls to him, particularly when he came to read the courtships and letters of love, where he often found passages like, "The reason of the unreason with which my reason is afflicted so weakens my reason, that with reason I murmur at your beauty," and again, "The high heavens, that of your divinity divinely fortify you with the stars, render you deserving of the desert your greatness deserves." Over words of this sort the poor gentleman lost his wits, and used to lie awake striving to understand them and worm the meaning out of them, which Aristotle himself could not make out nor pluck the heart out of their mysteries. He was not at all satisfied with the wounds Don Bellianus gave and took, because it seemed to him that however surgeons might heal them, he must have had his face and body covered all over with seams and scars. Still, he commended his author for ending his book with a promise of that interminable adventure, and many a time was he tempted to take the pen and finish it properly, as it was there proposed, which no doubt he would have done, and made a successful piece of work of it too, had not greater and more absorbing thoughts prevented him. Many an argument did he have with the curate of his village, a learned man and a graduate of Sagenza, as to which had been the better knight, Palmerin of England or Amadis of Gaul. Master Nicholas, the village barber, however, used to say that neither of them came up to the Knight of Phoebus, and that if anyone equaled him, it was Don Galau, the brother of Amadis of Gaul, because he was of a fiery spirit, and never was he such a milksop, nor a whimperer like his brother, while in valor he was in no way inferior to him. In short, his wits being quite gone, he hit upon the strangest notion that ever madman in this world hit upon, and that was that it seemed to him right and necessary, as well for the increase of his honor as for the service of his country, to turn knight, and roam the world over in full armor and on horseback in quest of adventures, and put in practice himself all that he had read of as being the usual practices of knight-errant, redressing all manner of wrongs, and exposing himself to peril and danger from which, in the issue, he was to reap eternal renown and fame. Already the poor man fancied himself, crowned by the might of his arm, Emperor of Trebizond at least, and so, led away by the intense enjoyment he found in these pleasant fancies, he set himself forthwith to put his scheme into execution. The first thing he did was to clean up some armor that had belonged to his great-grandfather, and had been for ages lying forgotten in a corner, eaten with rust, and covered with mildew. He scoured and polished it as best he could, but found that it had a great defect, for the helmet was only a morion, and the headpiece was incomplete. His ingenuity, however, supplied that defect, for he made a kind of half-helmet of pasteboard which, fitted to the morion, made it look like a whole one. It is true that to see if it was strong and fit to stand a cut, he drew his sword and gave it a couple of slashes, but with the first blow he undid in an instant what had taken him a week to do. He saw the flaw in this defense, and to remedy it he made it anew, inserting thin plates of iron inside it, in such a manner that he was satisfied with its solidity, and then, not caring to try any more experiments with it, he passed it and adopted it as a helmet of the most perfect construction. Then he looked to his hack, and though it had more cracks in its hide than there were seams on his armor, he thought that neither Alexander's Bucephalus nor the Cid's Babiaca could compare with it. For days were spent in thinking what name to give it, for as he said to himself, it was not right that a horse belonging to so famous a knight, and one with such merits of his own, should be without some distinctive name. He strove to adapt it so as to indicate what he had been before belonging to a knight-errant, and what he then was, for it was clear he was now something new and unprecedented in the world. In short, he came to call it Rocinante, a name to his thinking lofty and significant of his condition as a hack before, and now first and foremost of all the hacks in the world, having got a name for his horse so much to his taste, he set himself to give a name to himself, and he spent another 8 days pondering over this point, till at last he made up his mind to call himself Don Quixote, whence, as has been said, the authors of this true history have inferred that his name must have been Quijano, and not Quixada, as others would have it. But, remembering that the valiant Amadis was not content to call himself merely Amadis and nothing more, but added the name of his kingdom and country to make it famous, he thought he might properly follow his example, and call himself Don Quixote of La Mancha, whereby he declared his lineage and his country, and honored it with taking his surname from it. Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're diving into something truly special. A journey back to the roots of storytelling with a classic that continues to inspire. We're talking about the very beginning of Don Quixote, specifically Part 1, Chapter 1. You know, it's fascinating how a story written centuries ago can still feel so vibrant and relevant. When we first meet Alonso Quijano, this gentleman who's read so many chivalric romances that his brain gets a little, well, let's just say his reality starts to blur with the tales he devours. It's not just about him losing his grip, it's about the power of imagination, isn't it? How stories can shape our perception of the world, and even ourselves. Think about it. He decides to become a knight-errant, to right wrongs and defend the helpless. He even renames himself Don Quixote de la Mancha. It's this incredible leap of faith, this commitment to an ideal, even when the world around him is decidedly less grand. He's not just playing pretend, he's living his dream, or at least, his interpretation of it. And that's where the magic lies, I think. It's a reminder that sometimes, the most extraordinary adventures begin with a simple, unwavering belief in something bigger than ourselves. It encourages us to look at the world with a touch of that same wonder, to see the potential for heroism and nobility in everyday life. Even if our windmills don't quite look like giants, that it's a gentle nudge to consider the stories we consume, and how they might be influencing our own perspectives. Are we inspired to be more courageous, more compassionate, more ourselves? Don Quixote invites us to ponder that. With a wink and a smile. Thank you so much for joining me on this little trip down memory lane. I hope it sparked some thoughts about the stories that have shaped you. If you enjoyed this, please consider following along for more explorations into the world of film and television.